Russia can muster 125,000 more troops than Japan can. Japan in this battle is just taking anybody, young boys, old people, whoever they can put into that army, they're putting into it. If the Russians had run one more battle against the Japanese supply lines would have collapsed. The Japanese realized from the very beginning that they had a high-risk, high-reward strategy. And in contrast to World War II, they had a really carefully prepared exit strategy. So when Prime Minister Ito Hirobumi is convening the cabinet and they're going to make the decision to fire the first shots in this war, he is already lining up a Harvard grad, Viscount Kaneko, who was an acquaintance of President Theodore Roosevelt. And what they want is to have Viscount Kaneko work on getting Roosevelt ready to do mediation at the end of this war. So it's in the Battle of Mukden that Field Marshal Yamagata decides it's time to call the American card. He said, look, the enemy's never going to request peace unless we have invaded Moscow or St. Petersburg, something he knows to be impossible. And he does an assessment. He said, look, the enemy still has powerful forces in its home country. We have already exhausted ours. Second, while the enemy still does not run out of officers, we have lost a great number since the opening of the war and cannot easily replace them. At this moment, the Russian army was 3 times the size of the Japanese army. While the negotiations were being held on whether to hold negotiations, President Roosevelt suggested to the Japanese that they try to take Sakhalin Island. Why? Because it's much more valuable to the Russians than the Japanese, and it would be a good trade-back item in the peace negotiations. Because for Japan, it's a nice fishing ground, but for Russia, it's sovereign Russian territory. Horror is ceding that sovereign Russian territory to anyone. All right, to sum up what Japan got out of this war, it got its immediate war objective, Russian troop withdrawal from Manchuria. That's what they wanted. And they get this Japanese sphere of influence in Korea. That's what they wanted. They got the southern half of Sakhalin Island, Russian territory. And then it confirms the outcome of the first Sino-Japanese war, that Japan is indeed the dominant power of Asia.